Hello, and welcome to Cry Havoc Wargaming, dedicated to bringing you the uncommon. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Ron, and today we're going to do a review of Never Mind the Billhooks Deluxe by Wargames Illustrated and Andy Callan. So let's get started. I enjoy the game. Never Mind the Billhooks was originally printed in a small sort of pamphlet or brochure method and given for free in a issue of Wargames Illustrated. But they've recently updated it with a paperback version, Never Mind the Billhooks Deluxe. This has done a number of things, but this is a very nice quality book. I mean, it's a paperback. I'm not sure how well that'll hold up. It's typical paperback glued binder, but it's a glossy book, beautiful cover with the War of the Roses. The game in its original purpose was pretty specifically a War of the Roses game. Now for me, that's great. I happen to really be interested in the War of the Roses, but that was a detraction to some people for the game. And the deluxe version sort of resolves some of that. The book is really well laid out, and then it quickly divides into places. Usually with the classical names. So for instance, Albion, the section on Albion and the Albion campaign is the War of the Roses, and it lists a brief description of the War of the Roses and why it's good for gaming. The rules are basically set up still for War of the Roses. So there's a description on the various tokens. There are tokens made for the game. This has been a matter of a little issue on some of the Facebook pages right now. The game does use tokens and it uses cards. And I have the original ones. I think they were originally printed by Sarissa. And the images on the tokens are all based around the War of the Roses. The activation ones, for instance, are red and white roses. And then the cards in similar fashion. There's cards designed for the game, and those are specific again to those classes. There's now a second set of cards for the additional options in this game. And so if you wanted to play everything available in this game, you would need both sets of those cards and tokens, and that's been a challenge for some people. Mostly because I don't think it was advertised well or explained well, but that is the case. There are two separate decks of cards. All of these are actually printed in the book itself too. You could print and make your own if necessary. So the rules are broken down. It talks about how the fights are played, how they're run, how to form your units. The units are all formed out of units of either 6 or 12 men. Very similar to, say, Lion Rampant. If I have an issue with the game, it is that. I do kind of like the idea of changing the size of your forces, particularly for a medieval game. But this is meant to be about enjoyment. It's not really meant to be assimilation directly, but rather an enjoyable time to get to a game, get it played to the table rather quickly, to reach a successful result, and have fun doing it. And I think the game does that very well. There also are some ways of modifying your units to make up for that. You can form blocks, for instance, by putting two different companies together, companies of 12. So it breaks down into the true quality, the leaders, the points. All of this section is pretty much exactly the same. There may be some minor rule changes, but it is mostly the same as what's in the original little booklet. Again, just beautiful artwork, sometimes just to give a feel for the period, but often figures in the field and to inspire you. Summaries on the pages to make it easier to find what you're looking for. There's a number of helpful guides, these core list things that could easily be Xeroxed and used as QRSs later. Here's some photographs of actual gameplay describing the different ways they're used in the field. So a lot of good information on how to put the game on the table. And it's not a very challenging, difficult game to put together anyway. So this is all going to be very good, very useful. The system here on morale, how to use your tokens, the winning, optional rules for mustering, the summary of, and there is a division. I like this. I like when a book does this in a second version, is it has a page that does a summary of the new core rules, so it tells you what has changed. Matter of clarifications introduced in light of comments and feedback since the original version of Billhooks was published. Remember, it is a really small book originally. Army and unit organization, only one side can field Kern. The Kern are the Irish, and I haven't actually had an issue with that, but maybe that's just the scenarios I play. Point values. Veteran men-at-arms cost 6 points extra per company. Prepare for battle, optional scouting phase. The army with the least light horse may deploy all of its artillery and skirmishers with one of its wards first. Must deploy, I'm sorry, I was going to say that doesn't make any sense. So there's more point in having your skirmish cavalry. Gives you some stouts, some advantage in setup. Only skirmishers and cavalry can deploy within 9 inches of the table sides. These are fun. They all have, that one is the Bash Amendment. They all have little amendment names. Orders. Leaders can use one order token to mount or dismount once in the battle, exchange a foot or mounted figure. Shooting. Any gap a player shoots through must be at least 4 inches wide. Artillery line of fire must go no closer than 3 inches to friendly troops. Artillery can swivel in position up to 45 degrees, but then rolls only 1 shooting die per crewman that turn. Heavy guns and bombards can have a range of 36, not 30, and they cannot swivel. Okay, that makes sense. Veteran archers re-roll 1s when shooting the Shed Amendment. Bike blocks are densely packed, so they take 1 extra kill in the rear company when hit by artillery. 1 kill becomes 2, etc. Skirmishers do not obstruct line of sight. Okay, that all makes sense. Melee reactions. Daunted troops re-roll 6. Melee hit adjustments. Infantry attacking uphill do not re-roll 1s. Cavalries do. Melee saving throws. Kerns save on 5+ in melee, not 6. Continuing melee, an infantry block counts its 3rd rank in the 2nd round as well as the 1st. Okay, that's cool. Kern as well as cavalry must disengage if they do not daunt or break an opponent in the 1st round of melee. Morale rolls. Make a morale crisis test if troops from a different ward attack into an ongoing melee. All right. A roll of double 6 by infantry is always a pass. Double 1 is always a fail. No re-rolls. Re-roll 1 if the CNC is attached to the unit. Re-roll 1/6 if the unit lost a melee after being attacked in its flank or rank, or flank or rear. Okay, that makes sense. Optional, re-roll 1 if the unit is at full strength. Note this can make for a longer game. The game's not that long. Daunted troops fall back 1, move not 9 inches facing the enemy. Okay. Now, this is the part that's going to be exciting to a lot of people, is the rest of this book, or the next section of this book, gives new periods. And this is what I was saying when I mentioned that they were calling it by the classical names. For instance, the first period that they mention is the 100 Years' War, and that section is called Gallia. This talks a little bit about the description of the 100 Years' War, what it is. It mentions that you can't do that in a couple of pages, but it tries. It talks about wargaming potential and why you might want to play the game. It talks about the different theaters, giving you Brittany, Spain, the British Isles, Flanders. Then it has the Billhooks or Gallia rules. We're going to be seeing this kind of thing as we go through this. These are the changes to alter those basic core rules. That's why they were using the term core rules, to make it more applicable to playing in this possibly earlier period. Well, it's all earlier, but it's the end of the war is not that long before the Battle of the Roses. So it talks about how to change to play that period and gives you the different instructions. Again, there's a action list specific to that list, to the Gallia. And that again is going to be repeated over as we go through this. And then there's a scenario, capture the wagon, recover the loot. Also the Battle of St. Albans, Billhooks and Rolock. So there's a couple of scenarios given for each of the periods. The next one is Bohemia. This one's going to be pretty exciting to my friend Chris, the Hussite Wars. Again, it gives a description of what the Hussite Wars were, what they were about, who was involved, some of the major players, some of the events. It then again has a section talking about why you might want to wargame it. One of the things that Chris, my friend, will be happy to see, I did a review not very long ago about the new book for Lion Rampant. I didn't mention it, but it extends into the Hussite period too. But it makes no allowance for war wagons. Billhooks does. So there you go, Chris. Again, variations in the Billhook rules for the Bohemia section. Again, this does need a slightly different card deck. That's really only because of the cards for the leaders. Well, it's primarily because the cards for the leaders are designed around emblems for the different leaders in the different wars. You could get by with some other cards, but there's that. The Bohemia action list. Again, there's some scenarios. Peasants and Iron Lords, the Battle of Sudamir, 1420. I think that's the only one they give. Yeah, that's the only one they do for the Hussites. Then there's Helvetia. This is the Swiss Burgundian Wars. Same setup we've described a few times before. That's an interesting period to do. Helvetia action list. And then there's a scenario, the Battle of Hericourt, 1474. And then Italia, the Italian Wars. This is typically referred to as the Wars of Religion. Oh, I didn't mention this. This section is written by Andy Callan himself, the author of the game. A lot of these sections have been written by different people. But this same breakdown talks about the different groups in Italy, talks about why you'd want to play them, makes the variations in the rules, gives you the action list for that period, and then gives you some scenarios. Italian Wars it just looks really beautiful. There's some gorgeous images here. I think those are Sarisa buildings in the background. Just a beautiful Renaissance period figures. Just absolutely gorgeous. That'd be a fun period to do. Scenario is a set piece refight, the Battle of Seminara, 1503. And then the one that surprised me the most, Northumbria. This is the Scottish borderlands. Most people won't have immediately thought of doing this scale of game with border reavers, but when you study the period, a lot of the actions, and there were some downright battles, but many of these actions could be hundreds or thousands of men on a side, much larger than that stereotypical little raid that we often think about. So the game could be very useful for doing that, and it would really look nice to have a great set on the field of borders and in that beautiful terrain. So again, background of the period, the alterations in the rules to meet it, and Northumbria action list, then individual rule changes, and then there's a scenario, Black Eye Saturday, reaving and street fighting. This is actually a two-part scenario. There's a raid on a village, the raid on Haltwhistle, and then there's a pursuit of the raiders. So a really good way of getting that feel specific to the Reaver period, with the idea of an attack or a raid and then a hot trod of revenge. This is another one that was interesting to me and I'm not at all familiar with, really, and that is Lusitania. This is the late medieval Portugal, 1369 to 1479. Another interesting period to do that I hadn't really given much thought to. Same kind of breakdown that we've been talking about, though, over and over again, with the scenario, the death of the Duke, the Battle of, I don't pronounce Portuguese well, the Battle of Alfarrobiera in 1449. And then Hibernia, warfare in the late medieval Ireland. Another interesting period that would be fun to do. They're set, this is specifically, because I tend to think of rebellions in Ireland being later than this, but at the start of our period, Ireland was dominated by, so they're starting it at 1398. They're still matching all of the things in this game, or most of the things in this game are in a period of 14th to the very beginning of the 16th century. Even the borders only goes to, I think, in this book, to the 1550s, so it's on the earlier end of that border period, which doesn't really end until James comes to the throne in the 17th century. The scenario for the Ireland one is a bit of ravaging, get rich, get out, get drunk. Then there's a section here on painting, modeling, and kit bashing. I don't know if that was necessary in this book. I don't know that they'll have a lot of beginners to the hobby getting into this game. I think it's somewhat obscure for that, maybe. But it's always interesting to read other people's ideas, get new concepts and thoughts. So that was useful. There's even a section on how to make your own wet palette. The gentleman talks about some of the paints and some of the techniques he does, a blow-by-blow basic paint job. So nice little addition on how to do which could be useful to a brand new person getting into it. Some of the modeling is really great. He uses a suggestion here of making your own tokens instead of using the tokens with the game. And they're mostly built up using excess parts from the plastic Perry kits. It's actually an interesting chapter. Like I said, I don't know how necessary it was, but it is very interesting and worthwhile. It's only a few pages. I don't think it's really changed the cost of the book, which would be my only real reason to leave it out, would be to save money, and I don't think it affected the money very much. And the whole rear of the book is your decks, your various examples of the deck cards that are necessary. So you could easily just Xerox these out if you wanted to, photocopy them out if you wanted to. The tokens themselves, again, in the different, there's unicorns and lions for the general Europa. So not specific to all the other scenarios, just it's your choice of either a unicorn or a lion if you're doing the new things, or the white or red rose for the older stuff. And then there's reference sheets, and the reference sheets are specific to each of the different periods that I mentioned because it lists the different units, so it covers their rules. As I mentioned earlier, it was considerably more money than the first, but the first was a little pamphlet. I don't remember what I paid for it. I think it was between $25 and $30. So reasonable price still, a very good book. You can tell that it's put together by a magazine creator. It's well laid out, beautiful images and pictures all throughout it. Very well put together. I haven't played anything from it yet, but I read the changes. It's not a big change from the original rules. And the ones that I did read made a lot of sense and were mostly clarifications. So I'll try to get a War of the Roses game up as soon as I can. It's been a while since I played Billhooks. I think I have a video on the channel, but it's certainly been a while, and the quality of my videos have improved since those early days. So it's probably time to redo and return to War of the Roses and certainly to Billhooks. So we'll do that in the near future. If any of you have this book and have your opinions you'd like to share with it, or concerns, or questions for that matter, go ahead and put those in the comments down below. Also, if you have any ideas for further content you'd like to see us present here on Cry Havoc Wargaming, we looked at the comment section for that. I can't always assure or promise you that I will cover it, but I do when I can. If you've enjoyed the video, I hope that you hit like, and if you would like to continue to receive notifications for videos like this one that may help you determine how to better spend your money or time in your tabletop wargaming hobby, then I hope you'll hit subscribe and ring our notification bell. Till next time, cheers.